Hey, this is Matt from the Woodworking Nook. Today we're going to be building some wall art out of small pieces of wood. Now this project is pretty simple and can be used with any type of wood you like. You can either buy some small pieces from the hardware store, or a lot of the times you might have some scraps just laying around. For this specific project, I use 3/4 inch thick pieces of wood, with this laminated Baltic birch plywood being 1.5 inches thick total. With the glass tube being 1 inch thick, this will give a nice reveal outside of the wood for the plant display, and I'll have those linked below. In the video thumbnail, you probably noticed the curve at the bottom for one of the hanging pieces. You want to make sure not to cut that yet. I made that mistake and needed to recut those pieces. So after the rough cuts are done, you'll ideally want to use a drill press for this, especially if you're using a harder wood like maple or walnut. But right now I'm making a little jig for the pieces to clamp to. If you have a drill vise, this is basically the same thing, but I don't have one, so I'm just putting some pieces together here so that I have a edge to clamp the workpiece to. I first started cutting the hole using a 1-inch hole saw, mainly because I didn't have a 1-inch Forstner bit and didn't want to go to the hardware store to pick one up. So this initially seemed like it was going to work well. It cut the hole pretty easily, but the issue was removing that centerpiece. I tried drilling out some of it and hoped to easily pop it out, but that was not the case. So after a trip to the hardware store, I bought a 1-inch Forstner bit that worked a lot better. This allowed me to drill the holes in one pass and not remove anything else. It did create quite a lot of dust, but since my workpiece was clamped down, I was able to hold the shop vac up to the drill. Some of the designs needed a deeper slot drilled with the drill press. What I did was I moved the Forstner bit down as far as it could go and drilled the deeper slot that way. They do sell Forstner bit extenders on Amazon. I probably would have bought one before this project because it would have made it a lot easier to drill those deeper slots. Now this piece here is just made out of scrap red oak. This one is designed to just sit on a desk or a bookcase and have those plants inside of it. This wood is a lot easier to drill out than that maple piece. I then moved on to that laminated Baltic birch plywood piece, kind of to show you how you can do this without a drill press and just a normal drill. You just want to make sure it's clamped down with that same jig so that it doesn't move around when you're drilling out these holes. These are large holes, so there's a lot of material being removed. And again, I personally wouldn't use a normal drill for a piece of walnut, but for a softer wood like this Baltic birch plywood or pine, it's easier to drill through with that Forstner bit. After all the holes were drilled, it was time to clean up the shop a little. That's one benefit of having a small shop, is that it doesn't take very long to clean up. Plus with this boom arm, makes it easy to vacuum all the wood shavings. Now it was time to cut the pieces down to their final size. These smaller cuts can be really difficult with a track saw, especially when you're doing them at an angle. What I ended up doing was screwing down the waist side of the cut so that the screw hole wouldn't be visible and the piece would be fully supported. This ended up working pretty well. Obviously, it took a little bit of time to do this, but I was able to safely cut all of these pieces off this shape here. And especially with it being maple, you don't want your track saw to give you any kickback here. After those smaller cuts were done, it was time to shape the rounded bottom of some of these pieces. I initially wanted to use the belt sander to do this, but I had an old sanding belt, so it wasn't working fast enough. So I ended up using a jigsaw to come closer to that line, and then was able to use the orbital sander to match up to that line. After that shaping was done, it was time to sand off all the burn marks from my track saw. This part was kind of a pain to do, but was able to get it done quickly. Once these were done being sanded, it was time to finish each of the pieces. As far as finish goes, you can kind of use whatever you want. They're going to be hanging on the wall or just used as art pieces. So you're going after the look that you want as opposed to the durability. So I just used this can of oil to finish each piece. For mounting them to the wall, you can use picture frame hardware like this. I believe you could use command strips as well, but I have not tested that. I think these turned out pretty well and were pretty easy to make. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.